Hello and welcome to Spiritual Soul Centre. We are so grateful to everyone joining online. We've got the beautiful Dugyu with us today. I absolutely love having her on the show. It's just beautiful, beautiful. So I'll let her say a quick hello and then we'll tap into what we're talking about today.
Hello, and I also want to do the beautiful, beautiful Anya.
Oh, I love you. Thank you. Little sweet pie. It's always such a joy having you on the channel. We've just been catching up behind the scenes and it's been long overdue. And I just love speaking to you. You always fill the conversations with such joy, such excitement, such beautiful energy. And I just absolutely love it. It's always such a pleasure. It's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Yeah, so today we thought we'd kind of jump on and discuss, because Dugyu works a lot with children, with the inner child, and with a lot of that kind of aspect to healing and to doing the healing work, being a beautiful little bridge and a healer and a builder of this new earth that we're all stepping into. And she really is kind of paving the way for new outlooks, new perspectives, new understandings on how we can kind of interpret as own inner child healing, but then also how we can interpret, reflections with parents, reflections with his own children, reflections with family members and friendships, and kind of how these reflections impact us depending on the level of inner child healing we have done. And an interesting thing that we kind of tapped into as we was talking behind the scenes is a revelation that I clocked onto recently is the reason why I find it so easy to tap into inner child healing and to work in with other people with their inner child healing is because evidently my childhood, my experiences with my own childhood and my inner teen years was not that long ago, So as much as in my childhood years, I was living in the adult mindset and not in the child, but then having that connection with them years being so close really allowed me to do that healing work, again, like Dugyu says, without that build up and that condensation of pressure that we kind of put on the defense mechanisms and all them things. So I think it's really, really, really important, first of all, just to highlight the relevance of inner child healing and the relevance of not just thinking because we've kind of acknowledged something that we've done the inner child healing. That's a big misconception. A lot of us think, oh, we've done the inner child healing, and it is always an onion. There's always so many layers and so many defense mechanisms and patterns that were created out of very small things that we can label as trauma, that people don't perceive as trauma because it wasn't a massive traumatic event, for example. It could have been not being seen, not being heard, not, someone didn't have time to look at your picture because they was cooking or so and so, and that made you feel invalidated, but they had no malicious intention for that. They was just not wanting you to get burnt by the stove. And there's this kind of connection between, there's so many parts of us being that get neglected and not seen and needs not met that we do not validate, which means that inner child is just left like, hello, what about me? And it's until we go back and connecting with that person, that little child within us and the inner teen, that's when the real deeper levels of healing can begin on a subconscious level, because there is only so much conscious processing we can do before we go into the deeper patterns and subconscious patterns that were created from that trauma. Mm-hmm. Definitely.
100%. And I love that you mentioned it as an onion, because there's something about an onion. Because anyone cutting onions, regardless of whatever you're doing, it's gonna be painful, because that chemical reaction creates tears in our tear ducts, in our eyes. It's just gonna happen, and that's the natural process of it. But really that concept of like, okay, I have a self-awareness doesn't mean that's it. There is more. It doesn't mean your inner child work is done, nor do I feel that the inner child work ever finishes in our lifetime. And that's sort of what the purpose of children bring into our life. Like, how are you so young and you are reflecting this very wise thing within me? Because it's reflecting the exact core of that onion. That core of that onion is who I am. Like that core of that onion is really getting to the most aligned version of me. Because I'm not meant to be aligned all the time. I'm not going to learn.
Yes, that's the thing, and I think so important that you just tapped on that, because there is this misconception that even though there definitely is some big things coming this year, and awakenings and solar flashes and truths rising to the surfaces and remembrance of who we are, that does not mean that the healing process is just finished. Like, as much as it'd be great for us all to just like, oh, it's done, we're healed, done, that's kind of never going to be the point. We're never just going to be healed and done. The intention of it is to learn how to deal with it differently, learn how to receive their messages of experiences, and to learn through pain or through play and through different experiences. Now, when I learn, it's not as brutally, slap back in the face, because I'm prepared for the fact that universe does throw little lessons and experiences, but it's all about rising and reflecting. So as much as in that human moment, I'm allowed to have a reaction, I'm allowed to have a physical response to that, of course. But then the way I perceive it is completely different to the way I used to perceive things, because I'm coming from a version of not why me, why always me, not an unhealed version in the inner child of feeling hard done by and feeling not seen and not heard. It's not re-triggering all that trauma. It's almost like a new event, a new thing that I just have to deal with in that moment, rather than it triggering the domino effect of all the unhealed things underneath. So it just means that as we deal with new things that come in life, we have a much better response to it and a much better way of responding to that trauma and responding to that incident, rather than it triggering a whole backlog of unhealed responses.
Yeah. Well, I'm only meant to be present to what I'm meant to be present to. And I mean, like that moment, I feel resistance to going a little deeper is the exact like impetus. That's the prompt. That's the prompt my higher self is giving, to be like, okay, so I'm feeling a little discomfort, because there's going to be a period in our life where we're like really regulating our nervous system. We're only doing things within our comfort zone, because like, I really need to understand how I am and what my body does, connect to my body, be in that embodiment of like, oh, this is what good feels like. This is what pain feels like. Or even let's go deeper into pain. Like when we've like, there's been moments when I get out of the shower, I'm in a towel and I'm just on my phone scrolling, and I don't realize my hand and my feet are so cold, or they're numb in pain. And then I move and I'm like, oh, dang, I have been so disconnected.
Yes, right.
With my body, like disconnected with the temperature, with the level of pain that my body is feeling, or numbness, or etc. So it's like, now that I've understood what my body and my nervous system does when it's regulated, now's that time to really, in a very controlled way, come out of that like very regulated nervous system, because we know growth doesn't happen in comfort zone. It's going to happen in discomfort. In fact, there was scientific research that I recently came across that said, when we do something that is out of our routine and it's change, the brain literally feels it as pain.
How bizarre is that?
Why? Because it has to create new neural pathways.
Wow. So it's like creating a new direction for it to go in.
Literally.
Wow.
So it's one of those things of, and we know when we hear something 3 times, that's when it creates the neural pathway. The first time you hear it, you might be like, oh yeah, I heard about that somewhere. Or like, let's even like go into like remembering someone's name. The second time you hear it, you're like, okay, right, name to face. I want to remember it, because like the next time I have this awkward like incident with this person, you're like, hey, so-and-so. And then the third time, it gets instantiated. And so it gets put into long-term memory, instead of it just hanging around in short-term memory for like a day, a week, however long. And so comes back to this like very controlled way of coming out of comfort zone and recognizing, ooh, I've got resistance. And like at that point, it's like, okay, I have self-compassion to understand I'm not going to push myself out of this. That being said, my awareness of like, I see. Okay. So like, let's just like dive a little deeper in and like, let's just like see where this takes me into the next layer of the onion, because all I need to do is be present as a human, as a multidimensional being. All I have to do is be present to like what is coming up right now. I don't need to do it all.
And that's the thing, it's such a relevant thing that you've tapped on there, and it kind of leads us to what we are moving on to, is that even as a healer, even as an energy worker, whatever you want to call it, we still build up a resistance to heal and to do that inner deeper work. I mean, speaking for myself personally, I think because maybe the intensity of the way I learned, as many of you know my story with the hospitalization and stomach problems, when I experience things now, I kind of roll with that because it's a lot less intense than it used to be. So I learned my lesson, but then we kind of have the, you know, and this is in no disrespect to anyone, because we all learn and grow at different places and we have different challenges and things like that. But, you know, there is some people that kind of think because we've got to a certain level, oh, I've done that, I've healed that, and they dismiss it off. And then it does come, boom, and it will knock you down in a terms of not necessarily physically, but yes, sometimes, yeah, literally. And it is the case of nobody can avoid this work. No one can avoid the shadow work, the inner child healing, the trauma releasing, the cellular memory trauma releasing, the programs, the patterns reprogramming. You cannot avoid that, because any human living in this experience that has even spent a day in this 3D world that we've all grew up in and lived in has got trauma, you know, and that is the main thing.
Okay. So why is the inner child work so incredibly relevant to the journey? Like, what does it offer? Like, what are the Coles notes like of like why the inner child work? Because we get it, it's the feelings, it's the childhood memories, like those are all the very specifics, but taking that like more wider.
Okay, so that's a beautiful question as well. So for me, and then I would love to flip that back on you and see your reflection of that. So for me personally, it's crucial to becoming the whole version. So we have, I call them trauma pockets. So as we have explained, many situations amongst specifically the first 5 to 7 years of development, and then in the inner teen years as well, we have this fundamental version of when, as we're teaching a baby or something new to learn, you know, an animal, we're training it, it learns what it does not like, what it likes, and what it responds to, what it does not respond to, you know. And that's the same thing. So as we're growing and healing, when we do not like something, when we get a negative response to that, we build up these programs and patterns and systems in place, almost like a computer. We put a program in place that says, right, we didn't like the way that made us feel. Do not allow that reaction to happen again. So don't step out of your comfort zone. Don't let people see you doing something that's not like everyone else. Don't let someone see you being the one that stands out and the one that is more confident or more powerful. Like, just stay in the background, just stay hidden, you know. All these kind of limiting behaviors and beliefs that get built upon shame and guilt and embarrassment and fear and all these negative emotions created from trauma, which in essence are pain, you know, and it's points of pain which we then ignore, and we're not taught the normal ways to communicate. Specifically, men are not taught to communicate at all a lot of the time. So none of us have the emotional capability to express the pain, to then process it, acknowledge it, remove it, and heal from it. So then we have this build-up layer of blockages and pain that are clogging up the system, that are causing us to act and live in fight or flight responses, to be constantly in the defense, constantly thinking someone's attacking you, someone's putting you down, someone's getting at you, someone's targeting you, because you're living in the associations of the mind to everything you've experienced and never dealt with. So this carrying this baggage and this weight of all these, you know, memories and pain, but then sometimes you don't remember it. Sometimes you will never remember your childhood. Oh, you don't remember one thing from it, but the way you behave is based upon the subconscious memories that are stored from that childhood. So even if it's not consciously affecting you, you don't think your childhood is consciously affecting you, guaranteed that your patterns, behaviors, self-destructive, self-limiting, self-critical beliefs come from childhood trauma or adolescent trauma that is undealt with. So it is really the whole inner layer, to everything. Don't know where that's going on there. It is the kind of unhidden layer to everything that has really, it's like the whole setup. It's the fundamental value of us, because we have the current version of self, we have the highest version of self, we have the inner child, the inner teen, and then the multi different levels. Because when you're 50, 40, 60, you've then got the 20-year-old and the 30-year-old and the 40-year-old version of you as well. So all of that is encompassed in the inner versions of us. And it's about reconnecting that and feeling whole and feeling familiar with the childhood version of us and things like that, because that just provides, for me, a wholeness and the ability to reflect as an adult in the adult mind, rather than reacting as a child or in a childhood mindset or a defensive mindset from pain. So it allows me to step out of pain and allows me to step out of them responses made from pain. That's why I think it's so important for me and others. What do you think, my darling?
Let me just take a moment.
Sorry.
Like, take all that in. And yeah.
That was a beautiful question, though. I really enjoyed the question.
I love the way you just like put it all together. And like, if you notice, I'm just like writing and jotting.
Yeah, awesome.
It's such an activating conversation. And that's literally the intention of these conversations. And you know, Anya, you have such a beautiful, fiery, like heart connected way of just like we must get to the core, and we're getting to the core. Let's go together. Like, are you coming? Because I'm already ahead. Like, we're already going. Like, come on. And I love that energy so much.
Thank you. That's beautiful.
Thank you for all of that, because that was such a beautifully succinct way. Like, I feel like if we were to even take what you just said, it's a whole textbook. And that's exactly what you offer, like supporting others, and which is just so incredibly beautiful. So for anyone that feels that call of like, there's something that she's saying, that's exactly the type of person that you want to have guide you. And that's the type of person you want to go obtain their services from, because that's the prompt from your higher self to be like, go.
That's so beautiful.
Oh my gosh, of course. So really, the inner child work is one of those spaces of understanding that the earlier memories are essentially the furthest back, and everything's recorded, especially in the subconscious. We know everything is recorded in the subconscious, therefore it's not lost. It's just a matter of where we're at in our onion layer to like get to it. Now, if we were to even just imagine like our childhood is really just emoting. All we're doing is feeling emotions. That's all we're doing. That's primarily what the child does. And actually there's no thinking before action. It's just action. I feel, act, feel, act, feel, act. That moment that we put thinking into it, that's where ego kind of gets set up as a defense mechanism to protect the most vulnerable version of us.
Yep.
And then we stop to think, oh, well, like, I can't do this and this, or no, I don't want to be too much, or whatever those limiting beliefs are, because that's what it is. And so really it's a matter of like looking at like the way that I see emotions, like there's the feeling of it and being present to the feeling of it. And then there's emotions. Emotions are energy in motion. That's all it is.
Energy in motion. Yeah.
Exactly. Locomotion.
I love it.
And when energy is not in motion, that's when we're holding on to it. That's when we're not allowing it to flow through and move. Now, if that's been happening over years, then that's been suppressed. And so if emotions have not moved in a long time, those defense mechanisms, the many years that we've had pushing it down, now it's so dense. And it's not going to be on the surface. In fact, I see emotions as a very watery element. And so if we see, again, another play on the word emotion, ocean of emotions, the ocean of emotions, then those densest are at the bottom.
Yeah.
They're in the most, like, if you imagine an ocean, the deepest part of the ocean is dark.
Yep.
And science hasn't
deep and dark.
Deep dark, exactly. And so what is our natural, like, childlike way of navigating deep and dark? The unknown immediately brings up fear.
Fear.
The intention. That's the only intention. And so as you're in that deep dark place, the reason why we avoid that, because it's so scary and it's the unknown. And the irony is that only in darkness. And I feel like I was meant to be a woman in this lifetime and to bleed every month to go into my womb. Because where is the darkest place? Is the womb. It's hibernating. It's the cage.
In the womb space, yeah.
Exactly. And so in that darkest space, do I go in to feel, and do I feel it all? And by feeling it all, do I then surrender? Because like, I don't know where this is taking me, but it's exactly where it needs to. I'm just going to dive into the deep ocean and it's dark, but I'm going to surrender, rather not, but, and I'm going to surrender. Because when I surrender, that's when I find the most vastest version of me. Call it your higher self, call it your future self, whatever you feel connected to. And in that moment, I release into that and I'm like, whoa, wait, I'm supported. And then in that moment, that's where the heart breaks open. That's where the heart alchemizes that darkness and that density into light.
Boom. Mic drop.
Goodbye.
Oh, that was good. Yeah, okay, bye. See you. No, that was awesome. Awesome. And the way you put it in such a kind of quantum but human language, I think that's what really draws me in and just resonates with my soul, because it's like, yeah, my human gets the words you're saying, but then my soul also gets the activation on the subconscious cellular level from also the way it's phrased and the language that it's put in with, and the understanding of like energy and motion and the ocean and the density is like, it allows you to physically navigate through the actual things you're talking about like a story, and actually like to process through it and almost process through that own emotion as you're talking about it. And that's why, again, same reflection, the services you offer, we both work on very, very similar things, but in beautifully different ways. Like the way you just kind of flow through and take us through that journey of, okay, we start here and we finish here and this is how we get there, you know. And it's really, really, truly beautiful. And we need to work on now it's feeling more aligned to me, feels to you in the timing, to maybe getting up that inner child program running in the next couple of weeks. And you know, when because we've got the transformation to true self workshop day, which is coming up on the 25th of February, and just dropping this now while it's in the energy field. So that's in Yorkshire, face-to-face day. So that's not with beautiful Dugyu, unfortunately, and that would be wonderful, but she won't be here over in the UK for that. However, then we will be looking at offering some online inner child or inner teen or reconnection with the, you know, we're figuring out the dynamics of that, maybe a reconnection with the inner child, inner teen, kind of a support session or a group session or a workshop day, something along the lines of that. So if you guys would be kind of interested in that or would like to maybe see that go through, drop any ideas below or any kind of feedback or anything like that, we'd really appreciate that. But yeah, I think that'd be awesome. But yeah, so that kind of really beautiful reflection on the importance and the validation of, first of all, why inner child work is coming up right now. You know, this inner child work is not for children and it's not for young, well, it is, but the point is right now, it's not just for children, it's for 50-year-old men, 70-year-old women, 30-year-old, 35, all the different ages of beings to now reconnect, go roll down the hill, go run around freely, go skip and free, and allow yourself to be and show up in that moment as the authentic version of you, to then allow that healing to process. Even if you just do that in your own space behind closed doors while you're gaining the comfortability with that, the freedom will then come and the healing will then come from that process. And it is really about not putting it off and not waiting. There will always be something else to wait for. And it really is so important that we just kind of bite the bullet. You can't put off the shadow work, you know. I really wanted the beautiful Trish on the video today because she's just had a lovely experience. No, I'm joking, it was not lovely. She's had a lot
I'm
of
excited for her experience sharing that.
Yeah, I am too. When she's ready to share, we've got a beautiful experience from Trisha, but she's been along this journey with you guys, as we all have, and you know, we all just go through it at different parts and different levels, you know, and that's why this is so irrelevant what we're going to say next, in terms of, as I've always said, a lot of you that know me from Morocco, I always said that for me, it was like in Morocco, we all gained the understanding of the puzzle piece that we bring. And that's kind of like what's going on now. You know, again, I've seen another video that says we go through the dark night of the soul, and then we go through the white phase of like conscious expansion and understanding. And then they said there's the red, the sacral energy of the rising of the phoenix. And I feel like that's what we're really shifting into now. And it's that, specifically for me, it's that rising of the stepping into the true embodiment of self, and not being afraid to go through the dark night of the soul and the expansion of consciousness, because that will only lead you up. You can't go any further down from where you go. You can only go up. Trust me. You know, so when you go there,
but I want to go back. I want to go back. It's so easier. No,
definitely. Like it's so important to not put it off, to not live in fear. You're allowed to human emotion and process, of course, but to not live there, you know, and to know that we all have a soul mission. We have the scouts, the warriors, the healers, the bridges, the builders, the whole different role that we bring. So even if you feel like, oh, I'm not doing my soul mission right now, guaranteed you just being a light bringer, a light being in your local area where there's not that many people doing that, you are going to be a lighthouse for when that is necessary. So we are all doing our soul mission. We're all doing it. And even if someone else is dealing with the inner child and you're doing this and the heart space and the sacral, and we're all experiencing different things at different times. So just be there to help support each other and know that no one is any better than anyone else, you know, not us, not anyone else. And we're all going through it with you guys. You know, as we were saying earlier, me and Dugyu, the best way to be like a mentor, a guide, or a tutor is to not be miles and miles and miles ahead at the next decade. It's more about being that couple of steps away from each other so that we can help support each other, like literally on the steps, turning around and giving a hand to then turn around. And that's the whole point. We support each other and we help each other get up the staircase. You can't help them if you're at the top and they're at the bottom. How are you going to lift them up? You ain't going to get them. Your arms not long enough. And that's the point. The gap is too far, you know. So it's really important to send an intention out to the universe now to call in your soul family and your soul group and your, you know, your team, your energy people, because I now have expanded my little soul family and I've got little groups literally all over the world. And I love that. Like, for me, it's so beautiful to have these connections. And it really is just about setting that intention and then letting the universe do the magic, but also to not avoid doing the work and to not have the belief that we're ever fully healed and we're ever just, ooh, we're there. You know, you can be a lot more healed than you used to be, and have healing processes and techniques that are beautiful and healing, which means you don't experience it in the same negative way and you don't stuck there and you don't stay in the patterns. You know, you just experience maybe a minute or an hour or anything like that. Going off again, bloody calls. It's because I'm on the iPad today, guys.
And that's exactly it. The moment that you are self-aware of the resistance and you're like, I don't know what to do to continue, that's where the reach out to community is, because it's only in community and in reflection that we allow for the next lever and level of co-evolution in humanity. Because it's and that's how we make those ripple effects. And you know, there's a project that I'm currently working on that I'm super excited for, and really I'm looking for those that are aligned, which is called Humanity School. And that you can see more on my Instagram. But really just understanding, like, right now, it doesn't seem like I'm doing a lot. Maybe you've got your full-time job and you don't really see yourself doing a spiritual practice or coaching or whatever that might be. And you're doing the thing of like anchoring light. And then also doing the thing of like, I kind of want to do more. That's where we tap into like the different like individuals that have these very specific projects that are offering those for those exact moments. And so I want to instill that Humanity School, and really just the opportunity that we all have when we open ourselves up for these offerings.
And that's the thing, it is so beautiful. Like, you just reminded me, I won't drop any names or information, but I did a beautiful reading for a lady who works with children who have been trafficked, you know, and she obviously is not doing what you'd call spiritual work, but I explained to her the light work that she's bringing and has brought, you know, by being there throughout this time. Whoa, she's sometimes more on the front line than I have, even though I'm doing energy work. She's doing the front line physical work. And this is what I explained to her. You know, we all have roles in this journey, and physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, whichever way you are bringing that, by just being someone in an area where people struggle and they can come to you to laugh. that's light work, that's energy work, that's being a light warrior. And we all are bringing something. It's just the more we are confident, the more we are comfortable, the more we express that, the more light we can bring and the more help we can bring to people. So it is important to start embodying who we are, and to do that by navigating through the inner child, and then not forgetting that little inner teen, because my inner teen she's a feisty one. And, you know, sometimes we do the inner child work to a certain extent, and then we're like, I'm not moving past this, because it's not the child, it's the teen, or like we said earlier. So it is really important to reflecting on self and to do the work on self before trying to fix the world. You know, we can fix the world after we fix self, because that will probably make the world a lot more of a fixed place. If everyone fixes themselves, there's going to be a lot less people to fix. And that's kind of the whole point, right?
I love that.
I love that too. Do you have anything you want to add or anything before we finished?
I feel like that was perfect.
Yeah, that feels like a really good place to wrap up. So if you send me all your links over, I'll put them in the description of this video so that everyone can find you and check everything out in the humanitarian project. In regards to the upcoming projects, like I said, we've got the Transformation to True Self workshop day in Yorkshire on the 25th of February. It is a one-off event and there's only 55 tickets available. So there is now 50 tickets available, I believe. So make sure that if you are wanting to come to that, you check the links down below. And if anyone is needing the payment plan option, please just send me a message on Telegram, the website, or something like that. And as usual, all the links will be down below and all the Telegram chats. But thank you for joining us, and thank you so much, the beautiful, beautiful Dugyu, for all your wonderful insights and wisdom and reflections and kindness and everything. It's just wonderful. As always, thank you guys for tuning in, and I will see you again a different time. Love and light always. Look after yourself, protect yourself, hold the light. Bye, guys.